We heard a lot from Administrator Smith about the importance of protocols and warrants, and I understand all that. I'll just say I've seen a sea change at the Maryland Department of Transportation and the State Highway Administration. When I started this job 8 years ago and came to the first one of these, all I heard was that hawk signals were illegal, and our job is to move cars, not people. And clearly that attitude has changed. Maybe it hasn't changed as quickly or as much as some of us would like, but clearly that's not the case. And my district is a great example of this. There are hawk signals and other types of pedestrian signals throughout District 16 now, thanks to the work of Derek Gunn and his predecessors, Administrator Smith and his predecessors. I think a lot of those are going to have to be changed to red lights, not just yellow lights. Going forward, but appreciate it. There's a lot more to do. Maryland 187, Old Georgetown Road, it's gotten great attention from the State Highway Administration. Unfortunately, both rounds of attention have been as the result of fatalities, both in that case of young people. And we're continuing to patchwork the problem. We've added somewhat protected bike lanes, and we're extending that thanks to a recent decision of the State Highway Administration, which is tremendous, and I thank you for it. It would not have happened 8 years ago with your predecessors. Unfortunately, those lanes are not scheduled to be planned to run to downtown Bethesda, which is the place those bikers need to go. Right now, they're bike lanes to nowhere, as Delegate Foley was describing a moment ago. Appreciate that a pedestrian refuge is going in at 187 and Cordell. I think that project was approved 3 district engineers ago. I saw it in the plan for this year, but that's quite a while where the product has been identified and said we're going to do it and hasn't come in yet. I think we're using TAP funding to finally make it happen. On Maryland 190, River Road, which you heard a little about in District 15, it crosses both our districts. Administrator Smith mentioned great progress at Brayburn. That was the result of extraordinary intervention of your predecessor with efforts I know you supported, but was not something that was easily done, and again took multiple fatalities for the results to happen. We have another situation on Maryland 190 where we have existing painted bike lanes, so the right-of-way is already there, and unfortunately a woman, Sarah Landekamp, was recently killed. That death will focus the elected officials, the State Highway Administration, and others, but we don't always want to be responding to those circumstances. I will say on that response, though, at least plastic flex posts, need to be installed there yesterday. Again, those are existing painted bike lanes. It doesn't require taking any traffic lanes. We have an emerging situation at Maryland 396, which is Massachusetts Avenue, and Little Falls Parkway, which is a county parks road, where because of another road closure, there's a lot more cars trying to turn there illegally, and frankly, we should be putting a protected turn lane in there, but I understand the engineers don't want to do that, but appreciate that SHA, State Highway Administration, in case Senator Kagan is still here, the State Highway Administration and others responsible for that area are all coming together to meet to try to solve the problem, but I do not want to be having that meeting after a fatality. There's a lot of schools in that area. I want the meetings and the progress to happen before. But I really appreciate all the incredible engagement on those issues. I'll mention 2 other things briefly. On Maryland 191, Bradley Boulevard, we have continuous stormwater issues. Those issues are not unique to Bradley. You have them all across your system. You mentioned a high season of rain, Mr. Secretary. I would just posit to you that I don't think that's going to change. I think that's the new norm. That's not an exception. And our infrastructure was not built for it, so I think we need to figure out how we're going to get ahead of that, recognizing what you said, which is that there's not bottomless resources. Our constituents, and they are our constituents, you mentioned representing the governor, but you also represent the residents of our state, really don't care if there's not bottomless resources. They don't want flooding when they're trying to drive their kids home from the bus stop where they picked up their kids after school. I'll just mention on the Purple Line, there's already been a lot of talk about it. Appreciate Holly and Matt both being here and understand the position on the reopening of the trail. I would just note that the promise came from a prior P3 concessionaire, and I just hope, Mr. Secretary, that you are thinking very carefully about the promises P3 concessionaires make in one year that may not be followed in future years, because it is a really important issue on a whole host of projects. So I know that was a lot. Let me give you the last word, Mr. Secretary, before I turn it back to Chair.